Hey everyone, we have a special guest visiting the tavern today. We have Hamilton, Ontario's own Scotty O'Shea. What's going on, man?
What's going on? Thank you very much for having me, guys.
Absolutely, man. We're excited to have you on. Excited to talk some wrestling and talk to a fellow podcaster also.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about wrestling with myself. I've seen in your logo, I believe there's a Freddy Krueger glove in there, which
Correct. Yeah.
popped me huge.
Yeah.
Are you a fan of Nightmare on Elm Street? And then tell us about the podcast.
Well, first off, I'm a huge horror fan myself. I don't know if you can tell over my shoulder. I got a bit of a horror sign over there.
Yeah.
I actually run a couple of years ago. Me and a couple of buddies started up our own horror website called sunsetcrypt.com. It's a play on words with Sunset Flip and Tales from the Crypt type deal.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we just review movies and stuff. Like, it's nothing crazy. It's no bloody disgusting by any means, but it's just a passion project. And yeah, as for wrestling, I've been doing it for I started in 2003 when I was 13 years old, so I'm approaching 20 years. It's embarrassing when you say that because I should be way better. I should be way further along. But I don't know. Everybody's got different goals and attributes they want to attain. And my biggest goal was to just be happy and wrestle. And that's what I'm like knocking out of the park in that avenue. If I do say so myself, I'm just enjoying life, and I get to wrestle quite often because I live in a very like within a couple hour radius. I can get on usually 2 to 3 shows a weekend, and as long as I'm in a ring rolling around, I'm happy. I don't care how many people it's in front of.
That's awesome, man. Hamilton, I mean, up in there, that's Ethan Page country, correct? Like,
me and Ethan Page were best friends for years. You know, life just went separate ways, but absolute best friends. We started in the backyard together, and it's unbelievable seeing him just wrestle Sting on pay-per-views and Jericho on Rampage. Like, it's wild. He's the biggest hustler I've ever met, and nobody deserves it more.
That's awesome. And I see, like, you pointed out the horror collection you got, but I think you have some wrestling figs over your shoulder too. Are you
Oh yeah, I got some LJNs. I got some WCW figures. When I lived at home with my parents, my entire wall, I lived in the basement like most wrestling fans and wrestlers do at some point. And the entire wall was just coated basically like a wallpaper of figures in their package. But I had them all open in a way where they still look sealed, but I could play with them because I'm still a 12-year-old boy at heart.
Yeah.
And when I bought my house, I realized, like, the basement isn't quite the same size. So if I was to start putting all my toys on the walls, it would actually make the walls feel smaller. So I have a ton, like, boxes and boxes full of toys and action figures and stuff behind my furnace right now. This is a small sample piece, but yeah, it's just enough to kind of show off, and
That's awesome.
I every once in a while.
I got it. I'm the same way, man. I've got tons hidden different places, but
yeah,
only a few on display. Yeah.
Yeah. I actually just, like, literally this week started buying the NECA Toonie Terrors.
You know, I got the whole first set right behind me. You probably can't tell, but
that's awesome.
Yeah, I just got the Jason Voorhees, the Michael Myers, the Leatherface, and the Freddy, and I'm like, okay, this is going to be a problem for me.
That's like that's why I don't really collect anymore, and half the reason I like don't want to get back into it is because there's so many unbelievable things to collect now. It's just a wormhole. I don't want to, like, when those Funko Pops came out, I was like, I don't want one of them. Because once I get one, I'm gonna need like everyone, and I've fallen into it with a few things. I got the Home Alone series up there and stuff, but I have to really stop myself.
Yeah. So let's go back to the beginning, man. Like, when you were just a fan, I'm guessing you were a wrestling fan. Most guys who get into wrestling are. Like, what were you watching? Who were your guys? What were your earliest wrestling memories?
See, nothing against your question. I just hate this question because I just don't have an interesting answer. Mine is like across the board, same as everyone's. I was born in 89. I have an older brother, and my dad used to watch wrestling, and we'd have like older tapes around. So I always remember like Hulk Hogan. We had Hulkamania 4 on VHS. I remember finding it and just playing it nonstop. I love that. So I was always into Hulk Hogan. My brother and my dad would watch wrestling, and I remember always being being attracted to like the high flyers, the quicker, smaller guys. So like immediately Shawn Michaels, 1-2-3 Kid were two guys that I immediately loved, Owen Hart. And then it kind of just, like most wrestling fans too, we don't just love wrestling. We don't just like it. We obsess over it. And it's all I wanted to watch for a while. I had like hobbies here and there, and I still do, of course, but it always like, it's so minuscule compared to my like absolute obsession with professional wrestling. And it just took over. And like any little kid, you're just like, that's what I want to do. And my parents kind of flattered me with it. They were like, all right, we found a training school. They let me go in at 13 years old. I was just turned 13, and they let me go to wrestling school, which blows my mind at this point now. But now I talked to them, and they said like, well, we thought you were going to quit immediately, so we just let you do it. And now that was 2003. It's now almost the end of 2021, and I'm still more in love with it than I ever have. But it worked out. Now that I'm not living at home anymore, and they don't think they're just going to have to like take care of me all my life, they're a little more understanding about the passion.
Yeah.
So like what, you mentioned that you and Ethan were kind of in the backyards together. Like, were you guys doing backyard wrestling? I know me and Steve were probably 14 years old. We had a stint in the trampoline backyard wrestling game. So
the trampoline, that was like the big leagues for us. Like, well, we didn't even know anyone with a trampoline. That would have been like, holy moly,
We
WrestleMania.
hijacked somebody's. It wasn't ours. Yeah.
Yeah, it was. I think I was in grade 7 or 8, and I'm gonna mess up. I'm gonna call him Julian. Julian moved to my area, so he went to my school all of a sudden. And I don't really remember how we found each other, but we did. And I was always known as the wrestling guy. Maybe that's where the connection came, because he liked wrestling as well. And yeah, we just kind of started doing it. And I was actually training at this time. I had just started training. So now we were running our backyard company, and I would run like drills with people because I thought I was just a big shot all of a sudden, because I knew how to do a forward roll. And like the crazy thing was, we had like some girls there that had no interest in wrestling. They just wanted to hang out, and they could all do a lot of it. And Julian, who is like a legitimate like Taekwondo black belt, like badass, was just the most unathletic guy ever. Like, we used to always laugh. He couldn't do rolls and stuff. And also, we're at that time in our lives where like our bodies are awkward. We're not in puberty, but we're not like out of it. It's just in that awkward stage. And yeah, I think he did well though. He did very well.
Oh yeah. So when you started training that young, like, you always hear people talk about the physical side of it, taking bumps in the beginning, hitting the ropes, getting those bruises. But what was more difficult for you, like starting out when you really started taking the training really serious? Was it the physical aspect of it or the psychological aspect of it?
That's a great question. And I think it was the psychological. Probably a bit of both, if I'm going to be fair. But I just remember begging my parents for years, like, I want to be a pro wrestler. And I didn't know how to look for like training schools at that time. And at that time, they were just harder to find. The internet was around, but they're just more accustomed now. They're just a normal thing. And when we finally found one, it was local to us, luckily. I begged them forever to let me go, and then they finally let me. It was $75 a month. I started January 2nd. It was a Thursday or something. I can't remember. And we went to training, and where I trained, it was a little unorthodox, to say the least. Like, my first day, we learned sit out razor's edges and release German suplexes.
Wow.
Yeah, like,
wow.
Yeah, we didn't really have a curriculum. It was kind of, you just pay for ring time. My trainers might not appreciate that I said that, but I wouldn't change it. But I remember like hitting the ropes, and the ropes was like hitting me at the top of the head, and everything hurt. Everything hurt way more than I was expecting. And we went out, my parents went out with their friends that night, and I went with them. And they just went to their friend's house, and they had a hot tub. And they said, if you come with us, you can go sit in the hot tub tonight. And I was so sore. So I was like, that sounds like a fantastic idea. So I just sat in the hot tub, and I remember just thinking to myself, like, how do I get out of this? I do not want to go again tomorrow. It hurts. I regret ever letting them, like, asking for this. And it was just, I guess, pride that stuck it out. I was just like, I've begged for this for so many years. I have to tough out a month.
Right.
And then February 1st of that year, our school did like exhibitions shows, student shows essentially. And I had a match and it went well. And I kind of got, like, it was in front of a decent audience too. And I guess the bug bit me just enough to keep me along for another month. And then after that month, something similar would happen. And then eventually you kind of get over the jitters of it. You kind of learn and just your body gets a little more callous to it all. And then eventually I did love it. But that first night, all I was doing is like, how can I backpedal out of this?
Yeah.
Because I hate it.
Yeah. I can't imagine those early pains. Like, what did I get myself into?
Oh, it's just like, it's so much more real than it ever gets credit for. But just because it's sports entertainment, it's fixed, everybody just thinks, yeah, it's a trampoline, when it's just like, no, it's the furthest thing from. Like, I wish it was more like a trampoline. I think more people do. It's like, it should be faker with how little respect pro wrestling gets. We should just wrestle on a trampoline. Nobody respects it if they don't enjoy it anyway. So like, what are we trying to prove here?
So explain the difference between Scotty O'Shea and Anti-Hero SOS.
That's a great question. I'm still working on that too. Well, I'll lay it out for you a little more. When I was like 16 and I went by my old backyard name for years, Blaze. I thought that was like the coolest thing. Now, like, I cringe at that thought. But I remember telling my trainer at the time, like, hey, I need a new name, blah, blah, blah. And I thought I was Irish for years, for whatever reason. Now, like, I have a bit of a red beard. I just always thought I was Irish. And I remember going back and forth with him, and he's like, oh, what about like Scotty O'Shea? And I was like, oh, I like that because the initials are SOS. I'm a small guy. And I thought that, like, the SOS is a distress call. I thought that was cute. So I went with it. And then I didn't really get booked anywhere for years because I was this skinny runt. And then I adopted a gimmick called Hacker Scotty O'Shea, just like a hacker. And that did really well for a long time. And then it also worked out well because before I adopted Hacker, I was just wrestling as an Irish Scotty O'Shea. And my mom said one day, she's like, why are you Scotty O'Shea? It's like, well, because we're Irish. She's like, no, we're not at all. We're Scottish. And I was like, oh, fuck. But I adopted this like computer hacker, computer geek gimmick. And that did really well for like 10 years. And then when the pandemic hit, Sami Callihan kind of adopted a similar gimmick. And right around the exact same time, Mustafa Ali was also doing a hacker gimmick. And they both seem short-lived looking back, but that was kind of my notice where I was like, okay, it's time to switch things up. I really feel like I got everything out of that squeeze with the hacker gimmick. I was heel, I was babyface, and I needed to freshen it up just personally. So I've always kind of thought of myself as like a Dennis the Menace type. And a lot of people that know me will say the same thing. I'm a shit disturber. Like, I mean well, but if you don't know me and see some of the things I do, I really look like a cunt. And so it's just like, I was just looking around one day. It was during the pandemic. I was ready to switch things up. I was like, what can I be? And I have a hat, an old like baseball hat, and it says anti-hero on it. And I was just like, I like that a lot. And I don't know why. And I think I just dove in because I needed something and I wanted something before shows started happening again. And then I took it. I realized that Tommy N went by anti-hero for a bit too, but I was like, he's with WWE. He won't be around. And then he got released. And as soon as he got released, I was like, oh my God, he's going to become anti-hero again. Luckily, he hasn't yet, but yeah, I'm really figuring it out as I go still because I've only worked. I don't know where you guys are located, but
Charleston,
the pandemic is still like, it's easing up a lot here, but it's not like it was.
Yeah.
And, the way you kind of work these things out is getting reps in and figuring, just throwing shit at the wall and seeing what sticks. Right. So I'm hoping in a couple more months, more shows, I'll have a more defined idea of what anti-hero is. But right now I'm kind of playing it as myself with the volume turned up a little bit. I hate that saying, but it's true.
Well, come on down to West Virginia, man. We have tons of shows running here. So
do you really?
Yeah,
good bit. It started ramping up for sure.
Yeah,
it's getting better here, but still, like before, I said earlier, it's like within a couple hour radius, I could work 2 or 3 shows a weekend. But that was pre-pandemic. Now it's kind of 1, maybe 2, but it's getting better. I'm staying optimistic with everything.
Yeah, you guys kind of got locked down a little longer, right? Like, didn't they? I was going to ask about that. Like, can you compare just the Canadian independent scene pre and post pandemic? Like, what's it feel like up there right now?
Oh, it still feel like I did my first show indoors with fans just this past weekend. Besides that, it's been all outdoor. A few people have done it, but yeah, I know the last time this city or province was in lockdown, I remember hearing that we had officially been the longest province in the world under lockdown. Now, I don't know if that's true now with Australia because I know they're going through their own stuff. But yeah, it's still weird just because people are still getting their footings. A lot of promotions haven't come back yet. And even the ones that have, it's just kind of they've been tippy-toeing. So it's really even hard to give you a good answer. The only real common thing I can say is over this break, people have either gotten in incredibly good shape or have gotten chubby. And I have went with the chubby route.
Yeah. I think BMD said the same thing when he was on. BMD was like, I've just been drinking a lot of beer. So.
Yeah, it's hard not to, man. Like, I get it. It's just, I had a baby a couple months ago too. So like, I wasn't going to let my pregnant wife just enjoy all the sweets all the time. You know, I had to join her. But as you get older, you realize a minute on the lips really is a lifetime on the hips. So
yeah. What's that like, man, being a new dad?
It's wild. I almost feel like I shouldn't answer it because I don't. Our baby is just so great. And I'm not even just saying that as a biased parent.
Sure.
We actually had to keep her in the hospital 24 hours longer when she was born because she was so calm and content that the nurses were like, oh, she might be sick. She might be lethargic. And then turned out she's just a very calm, cool, and collected baby. She hardly ever cries. Like, I don't even like talking about it because it sounds like I'm bragging. It's just, I feel like I haven't gotten a true baby experience yet because she's spoiling us. So I have nothing but great things to say. And I know by talking to my other friends that are new parents, they're just want to like take me by the ankles and hold me over a balcony. So they're like, this is just incredible.
Congratulations. Enjoy that, man.
Thank you. Yeah, it is the best. Thank you.
That's awesome. Back to like the anti-hero SOS. Can you walk us through maybe even just the Scotty O'Shea or what you're going through right now, kind of getting that character under you? Like, what is the process of developing a character? You know, you said that you saw the ball cap with the anti-hero and it reached out to you. Like, what are you drawing inspirations from? What are the things that you see that kind of click? Is it movies? Is it stuff in music? I know there's I saw an awesome photography shoot you did where you're wearing the gas mask and the black leather. Like, how do you pull these pieces together? Like, what?
So I took a lot of while I was still hacker, I did a lot of I was a regular at Smash Wrestling. I'm not sure if you guys have heard of them.
Yeah.
But they ran like basically weekly, and they had really good production and stuff with a Titantron type deal. So we could really play videos and vignettes a lot and get characters over. And my character was slowly transitioning into almost a conspiracy theorist type deal that we've seen before, as well as like a cult leader and stuff. And I started wearing different masks to the ring. And I kept talking about, it was a lot of gibberish at the time. I just kept talking about conspiracies. And I found this really great song that I used as my entrance video. And at the beginning of it, it has George Carlin going off just about government and how you can't trust them and stuff. And I'm just a big stand-up comedy fan. So I liked it because it was like the prelude. It was him talking. Then it just went into a cool song. So I had that forever. And I kind of built up on that as just the almost like before anti-vaxxer type guy before I even knew what that was. Just like that, don't trust the government, don't trust anybody type thing. That I might have worded that wrong and pissed people off, but I don't got a big vocabulary, so that's what I went for. But then when I was looking to iron out this new character, I was like, I've been wearing masks, and now everybody has to wear a mask. So I wanted like an old school Russian gas mask. And when I wear it, if somebody's going to question me, I went back into like videos and promos I cut, and I was saying cryptic things that almost sounded like I knew some kind of pandemic was coming. Yet again, I understand I'm reaching a little bit here, but with like a little twisting of words, I could make you believe that like, hey, I saw this coming. I was trying to warn everybody. That's why I was wearing the mask, doing all this. You guys didn't believe me, and now here we are. And then I also wanted to look like a heel as well, because I know sometimes when you wear cool things down to the ring as entrance gear, that can almost make you a baby face just by how cool you look.
Right.
So I was like, what can I wear that's cool, but is obviously you're not going to clap for me? And then I was just I'm a bit of a history buff as well. And I was looking at like Nazi uniforms and stuff.
Yeah.
And they all had the long dusters, and it was just a certain style of button and stuff.
Yep.
And I was like, what if I was to get something like that, similar, that would make you think maybe Nazi, maybe German, something like that, without it just being in your face that I have a swastika on and stuff. So I found that jacket on wish.com, luckily. And yeah, that was it. Like I use a Extendo Billy Club once in a while now too, because I know like police brutality was in the news, and I was just like, that's another nerve I might be able to hit on. Maybe some people don't even realize it, but if they do, maybe that'll just get me that little inch further into their psyche of like, this guy's a real piece of shit. And at the end of the day, that is the character I'm portraying. I don't want to be well liked. So it's just, like I said, it's a work in progress. It's constantly evolving.
I love that, man, because I don't think people take into consideration those tiny choices you make, like with the baton, the duster jacket, the German influence, like all of those. That's very calculated in trying to get it over. And dude, when I first saw that picture, I was like, this looks like a super villain from like The Watchmen. You know what I mean?
It's so funny you say that, because that's like exactly what I go for. Really, like when I think of what look I want, I think of, is his name Red Skull from like the Captain America series? Like that's kind of what I go for. And I remember talking to Butcher and the Blade, and they take a ton of inspiration just from like 80s action movies.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I really like that too, because I think they even describe their gimmick as just they're like the bad guys at the end of the movie. You don't even have to know why they're bad, their backstory. They're just like the end boss.
Right.
And their look is so cool that you kind of just accept it. Now, they have great bodies. I've never been a body guy. I understand that. But I always figured, like, if I can just make my look with my attire, costume, whatever you want to call it, cool enough, I can get by. So I also look at that too. Like any kind of horror movie, that's where I get a lot of stuff from, especially like the underground ones that people haven't seen before. Like if I come out dressed as Freddy Krueger, people understand where I maybe have lifted it from. But if I find something I don't think anybody's seen, that's when you feel like you've hit the mother load, and it's just like, okay, here's something. Like lately, I've also been getting a lot of inspiration from the newest Judge Dredd movie, the one that came out in like 2012 or whatever.
Oh yeah.
Just like that officer, I know he's a good guy, but just that man in charge that takes no shit.
Right. I don't know if you're familiar with these two horror movies, but that mask instantly gives me vibes of like the old 80s slasher movie, The Prowler, or...
Oh, that's a great one. I always get My Bloody Valentine.
Yeah, My Bloody Valentine and The Prowler. Those two, I'm like, okay.
Oh, yeah, I love, like, I wish I could put more horror movie influences into it, to be honest.
Yeah.
Half the time I kind of just stumble upon things and do it. But if I could actually know there's a horror influence into what I'm doing, not only would it like make me mark out more, I think I could actually go further with it because I'm passionate about that.
Yeah. You said you were a fan of stand-up comedy. Who do you like? Because we're both diehard stand-up fans.
Oh, wow. Well, basically, the reason I started my podcast, I called it Wrestling with Myself, because initially I didn't want to depend on guests all the time, because I know booking guests and stuff was such a headache. So I was like, I'll just talk to myself and try to be funny for an hour each week. And it was directly related and inspired by Bill Burr's Monday Morning Podcast. Bill Burr is just, I would die to open mouth kiss him. I love everything he does. He's my main man. But then there's a lot of other guys like Nick DiPaolo, I love, Gary Gulman, Bo Burnham. Like, I like most of them, but Bill Burr is that guy who just, the moment I discovered him, my life's never been the same.
Yeah. He's one of the best, man.
He is one of my favorites for
And
sure.
I kind of hate now. I hate being this hipster that says it, but I did discover him maybe 2 years before he really blew up. So now it's just it's like saying Tom Brady's your favorite football player. It's like, yeah, of course he is. But it's like, no, I was a fan before he was the biggest comedian in the world.
Right.
Well, we worked at Tower Records in New York City. We lived up there for a couple of years, and this was what, 05?
Yeah, 05, 06.
05, 06, and he came into the store, and I remember nobody really knew who he was, but I was like, oh man, there's Bill Burr. Man.
Yeah, he was on Chappelle's show.
He was on Chappelle's show.
Yeah. So I got a question for you, and it's inspired by one of your past Halloween costumes that you had. What is the best Ernest movie?
Oh, what a great question, by the way. Thank you for asking. You know what? I like most of them. I like all of them, what I'm saying. But I think I do got to say, it's definitely Ernest Scared Stupid, but Ernest Saves Christmas is right behind it.
Ernest, yeah.
I have a nostalgic place just because it was the first one my dad ever showed me was Ernest Goes to Camp. I mean,
great movie.
So good, but Ernest Scared Stupid, and even Ernest Goes to Prison is good.
Even the real bad ones when he's like older, I still think they're great. Like, it's just
I am Dunk Ernest.
I was talking to a guy yesterday about this, and I was just like, sometimes I quote so many things, like we're inspired by so many things, and I just every day make quotes and stuff. It was only like a couple weeks ago I realized, like, wow, a big part of my vocabulary and sayings is directly like related to Ernest movies. Like, how about a bumper sandwich, booger lips is like my favorite quote of all time. Like, etch that in my tombstone.
When I was a little kid, my dad had like a mechanic shop where he'd fix cars and stuff. And him and the guy who worked in the garage with him, my nickname was Vern. You know how
my God.
Ernest is always talking to the camera, like, know what I mean, Vern? So my dad just started calling me Vern. So Ernest has been in my life since I was a tiny little kid.
And I love that you guys are aware of them because you're of the age too. But like a lot of people now, they don't know.
Right.
You know, they just know him as like, oh, that's the guy who voiced Slinky Dog. And it's like, well, yeah, but.
Oh, man. Ernest is king. Like,
yeah, he's the best.
He's so good.
Here, and this is weird that we have this, but I've got this.
How about a bumper sandwich, booger lips?
There you go. There you go.
I keep seeing that picture online too. And I don't know if you guys have seen it, but it's like, has anybody else noticed that John Cena is slowly morphing into Ernest? And I was like, I'm for that.
So true.
100%, yes.
Oh, that is so true. So since we're edging into October, we've already talked a little bit about horror movies. Let's talk a little more about, like, what are your movies? You know, like, what made you like horror? And what were those early movies growing up that pulled you into the genre?
I remember watching Tales from the Crypt with my dad a lot. And I don't know if you guys had the same. The big horror junkies that I've talked to, we all seem to have a similar origin story. But I remember, like, I hated horror. I was terrified of it, but I couldn't look away. And I remember anytime Tales from the Crypt was on, that beginning intro when it would go through the haunted mansion down the stairs and then he'd pop up out of the casket would scare the shit out of me. I'd hide, I'd cry, but like I couldn't look away. And we had Child's Play 3. A lot of people hate that Child's Play. It still holds a very big part of my heart.
The military school one,
yeah. I understand it's like just the exact same movie for a third time, but I do love it. And I remember I was at my cousin's house with my brother. I couldn't have been older than 6 years old. And I had watched horror before, but yet again, I was terrified of it, but I couldn't stop watching it. And we went to the video store and I made them rent it again. We had seen it before. They didn't want to rent it, but I just threw a hissy fit and I made them rent it. And we watched it. And I just remember being in the chair, frozen. I couldn't move because if I moved at all, I thought Chucky was going to get me. And at the time we were at my cousin's house and they were moving, so they had shit all over the place. So in the doorway, they moved my brother and cousin went to the kitchen, left out of the doorway, and then they moved the mattress long ways across the doorway. So now it's kind of blocked in. And then they grabbed a big bread knife, serrated bread knife, and went on their knees and then walked. So I couldn't see the top of their head. I just saw a knife kind of going like this over the mattress. And it like scarred me to this day. I was like, Chucky's here and he's going to kill me. But that like absolute fear just turned more and more into an obsession. So I would absolutely have to say Chucky, Child's Play is my guy. Like I have a daughter and I named her Charlie. And my wife thinks I named her Charlie because it was my grandfather's name. Like it's a unisex name. I named her Charlie because I get to call her Chuck and Chucky every day of her life now.
That's awesome.
That's great, man.
Did you guys have up there, when I was growing up, I'm 37. So we had Joe Bob Briggs' Monster Vision. And we had USA Up All Night, and they would show horror movies at night, like Gilbert Godfrey. And dude, those type of, did you guys have those like nightly monster movie things?
I'm so happy you brought this up because now that Joe Bob's back on Shudder, he's on like season 3 or whatever just ended. Yeah. And so I never remember watching it purposely. I remember sporadically just watching something and he'd pop up and I never knew what it was. And I really never learned what it was until I got Shudder like 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So if we did have it, I was unaware. Like we must have, because I did come across it. We didn't have a satellite dish or anything. But the only thing I really remember is like TBS at the time would just play horror movies late at night. That's the only real thing I remember being like horror centric. Maybe I'm missing something, but yeah, nothing like that. It's only now. Like I just watched the Elvira special this past weekend. And it's like we're so fortunate we still have that they're still creating content, because I just feel like if I was this age now and I had learned about it, I would feel like I missed out on so much, which I still did, but I'm still getting to relive it in real time. And it's like the greatest thing.
Oh man, when Shudder announced, like I knew of Shudder, but I'd never like took the dive into it. But when they announced that Joe Bob was coming back, I was like, okay, take all my fucking money.
Yeah, it's just, and last year during the pandemic, it was like nobody had plans. So every Friday, I'd be out doing something, wrestling, just living life on a Friday. Everything was closed. So me and my buddies would just video call each other and we'd watch the entire thing with like every Friday. It was the best. And then this year was very similar because still everything was closed. So it was just like, it was the greatest treat ever. Like I can't wait till next Friday with the Thanksgiving or the Halloween special.
Yeah, man. I'm so stoked that's back. So Ethan Page, Rip Impact, Bret Michael David, Jimmy Havoc, Teddy Hart, Daniel Garcia, Stu Grayson. Is there one match or opponent? You faced all those guys. When you look back at all the people you've been in the ring with, is there one opponent or one match where you look back and say, man, that was like a defining moment for me, or you took something from that match?
You know what? This might not be the answer people are hoping for, especially now with the news that have come out. But Michael Elgin years ago lived an hour and a half from me, and we hung out a lot. He did a lot for a lot of us. I understand he has some issues now, but he really took care of us for a long time. And he's a couple years older than us, but he was just so skilled in the ring, still is. And I remember having a match with him one night because I had wrestled a tag match. I was only 17, 18 at this time, very new, very shitty still. I had worked a tag match earlier on in the show, and then he had a singles match, and the guy went for a baseball slide during the match and rolled his ankle like Sid Vicious style. And the match was called almost immediately. And then I think we went to intermission, and Elgin was like, I want to wrestle. And I don't know if I volunteered. Looking back, I don't think I would have, because I would have been scared shitless to basically call a match. So I want to say he picked me because we had a history together, and he just gave me so much. He let me lead at times. He let me call my spots, and what that did for my confidence was so huge. It's something I still hold on to today, and nothing to take away from a lot of those guys that you've mentioned. I've learned a ton from every one of them, but I remember that being the first real time where I was just like, I feel like I've been playing wrestler for a long time.
Right.
I still feel like that sometimes. But tonight, this instant, I felt like I was actually being able to hang and be a professional wrestler. So that had one of the biggest impacts on me.
What's the confidence boost like that in, when you're just being led through a match to being given the keys to call a match? Like what's that do for you?
It's just like, yet again, it's the scariest thing because you always convince yourself I can do it. But then even at this time, this was like 2007, 2008, Elgin hadn't broken out nationally yet, but in Canada, he was already being regarded as like, he's one of the guys to watch. He's incredible. He's going to be somebody. And just having a fellow like worker put that trust in you, it's kind of a fight or flight thing. And when you finally turn out and it works out, it's this really weird thing, because I think most people will tell you, if they've been wrestling long enough, confidence is almost the main thing in pro wrestling, because pro wrestling is this weird sport where you don't actually have to be the best professional wrestler to be known as the best professional wrestler. You
Right.
just have to be charismatic. You have to have a good look. Like there's a bunch of things that you need, but if you're really good in one of them, sometimes you can go really far. And having confidence doing what you're doing, almost in anything in life, it's just such an important aspect of it all. Because if you really truly believe you're the cock of the walk, you start acting like it as well. People start believing you more, and then that snowball effect just gets bigger and bigger. It's one of the biggest things. When I go out to wrestle every night, I always remind myself of like a few things. I always tell myself to stay safe. I always tell myself, like, you're here for a reason. It's because you're professional. So get out of your head. Like, because we all put so much pressure on each other. Just like, get out of your head. You're here for a reason. You know what you're doing. And then I always say, have fun. And I believe those are like the three main things.
That's awesome, man. So is there any current product that you're watching today? Do you watch anything current?
I don't watch anything. Like, sometimes I feel like I'm too big of a wrestling fan still to be involved with wrestling. Like, I have that. Me and my friends make that joke all the time because like GCW, it's like every weekend they're having double shots, and if I'm not wrestling, I'm watching it. Like AEW is on tonight, I'll be watching it. Yeah, I don't watch a ton of WWE anymore, in all honesty.
Yeah.
But the G1's on right now. I'm trying to watch as much of that as I can. Like I watch as much as time limits me now because it's my favorite thing in the world to do. I haven't hit. I know a lot of guys, the longer they're involved with wrestling, they kind of hit a point of bitterness just with the business, and they don't enjoy it like they did as a fan. I have yet to hit that. Like I love it. Nothing is better to me than a Friday or Saturday night when I'm not wrestling and I have the opportunity to invite a couple of the boys over and we enjoy wrestling, because I genuinely just love it.
I love that, man.
Yeah, that's awesome, because
I
we
love
do
that.
hear a lot when we talk to people that they have that almost jaded outlook on the current product and they don't watch anything. So it's good to hear that you're still such a huge fan.
And I get it. Like, I understand where I am. Like, I'm not traveling 6 days a week to wrestle. I understand how that can burn you out on the wrestling business in general. And then you don't want to spend your free time watching it and whatnot. Sometimes you can be so deep in the forest, you can't see the trees anymore. Like, I understand where they're coming from. But again, going back to like where we started about, like being happy with what you're doing. I never want to be in a space where I don't enjoy this. And right now, yeah, I might not be a main player. I might not be like a huge indie wrestler. I'm more of a local competitor. I'm not ashamed to say that, but I'm an incredibly happy, fulfilled person. And if this is as good as it gets, that's fine. If it gets even better, bigger, that's great. But where I'm at right now, I'm just so comfortable and happy with it. Life can't get any better.
I love that.
I feel like that's so important, man. Like when you're chasing a passion, like obviously these guys who get jaded and burn out on it, at one point they were a fan, and I feel like when you lose sight of what put you there, like subliminally the audience can sometimes pick up on like you not really being into it. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
sure.
Like if you see someone who's still in love with the craft and remember why they even fell in love with it to begin with, I feel like that it comes across to the fans.
That's the thing. Like, me and the guys, we talk about it all the time. It's just we're so instilled that like we're gonna wrestle because we want to get to WWE, we want to get a contract somewhere, and then we talk to guys that got a contract somewhere and they're not enjoying it anymore, right? And we hear that a lot with WWE. Like, I don't want to throw them under the bus, but let's be real, we hear that all the time. It has sucked the passion out of more people.
Yep.
And it's just like, why are we working towards that then? Like, if that is your goal, by all means, like, I'm not one to say, but I just want to be happy doing whatever it is I'm doing. And even if I'm at this low stage, yeah, it might be embarrassing to look at like, oh, he's still doing that indie wrestling thing. But like, I'm happier than a pig in shit. Before the pandemic, I was able to pay my mortgage off with wrestling, like,
Awesome.
yeah. And it's just like, that's so fulfilling for me. It makes me feel like I'm doing something good. And it's just also, if I just didn't wrestle, like, what would I put all this time and effort into? Like, I'd be scared.
Yeah. Right. So if I'm wanting to start smoking cigars, like I'm kind of thinking about it, what cigar would you recommend I try to start off this new habit?
Oh, God bless you. It's an incredibly fun and expensive hobby to get into.
Yeah.
I would say go into a cigar shop, act like you've been there before, because even now, like, I know my way around a cigar shop. I go in, they always treat you like you're a dumb shit just because a lot of people are. So just act like you've been there before and ask for a Macanudo Classico. That's what they used to always smoke on Sopranos. That's
Oh,
what
okay.
that's why I would always choose it. It's a great mild cigar. If you ask for it, they'll be like, okay, this guy knows what the hell he's talking about, and it won't put you on your ass. But just really enjoy it too. My favorite thing about a cigar, and really the reason I fell in love with it, is because, like, I don't know, I'm not judging. Both my parents were smokers, but I saw them smoke all my life, but they'd be like smoking while mowing the lawn, while making dinner, like on the phone, stressing out. If you have a cigar in your hand, you have basically told the world, I'm not doing anything for 45 minutes to an hour. I'm relaxing. Cigar's not something you do when you're stressed out. It's something you do when you're just relaxing and chilled out. And I love that.
that's all. I'm actually going to do that. I'm going a Macanudo Classico.
That's it, man. And you'll love it. And then if you enjoy that, the world just opens up to you, especially in the States too. Like, cigar prices in Canada is obscene.
What's cigar run?
Like,
What's a Macanudo Classico run for you up there?
for me, up here, a Gordo, which is a certain size, I want to say it's about $17. For you, you can probably get it for $8.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Yeah,
Wow.
you got the
Taxing
border
you guys.
really beats the shit out of us.
Wow.
Wow.
That so over the next 3 years, what are some goals of yours?
It's an interesting question. There's another thing about me. I'm like the least ambitious person of all time. Like, I don't set goals, I don't think. And I think what I'd like to do is I would really, because I've been around, I still consider myself a young guy, but I've been around long enough that I've seen a couple like generations of wrestlers come after me now. I would really like to put extra time into helping them. I don't want me as a trainer. I get the heebie-jeebies when it comes to like thinking of me training a wrestling class or anything, but really just help them with like the little things that you don't learn at wrestling training. So I'd really like to start giving back to my community of wrestling where I started, because they've given so much to me. I'd like to, I would, I'd like to branch out a little more. The border's always scared me. I hear stories about guys like Speedball, Josh Alexander, and stuff. Like, they've all got in trouble. But the order, but it's been so long now of hearing people pestering me about like you should break out a little more and go down south, and I really should now. And you know, time is of the essence. I don't think it's going to be something I regret if I never do it, but I would be interested to see spread my wings a little further and see if I'm as good as I may perceive myself to be else. So that's another one. But overall, above all else, it would just be continue to be happy doing what you're doing. That's like my number one. Everything else is a far second.
Yeah, that I feel like anyone should have that goal. No matter how ambitious or whatever you want to do, like just being happy, that is the key to everything. I feel
yeah, I really focus on it on just day-to-day life. And yeah, I think it's really helped me with a lot of things. And yeah, I'm a big proponent of it. I sound like a broken record sometimes, but it's just worked out so great for me. I kind of just keep steering into it.
So for any of our listeners that may not know, let them know who
Scotty
O'Shea, anti-hero SOS is.
I'm probably your second favorite wrestler once you see me. I won't say I'm your first. I'm inappropriate most times when you get to know me. I will probably get in trouble or try to be canceled at some point for some stupid joke I've said in the past. But let me tell you, it's just a joke. I promise. I don't mean anything. I'm just a dude who's trying really hard, who tries really hard to be a good pro wrestler. I want to be the best pro wrestler with love handles. That's really my ultimate goal, I think.
Oh, hell yeah. That's a great talent. I like that.
And yeah, I'm just I'm kind of a busy man. I get I'm a man of many little passions, and I like to keep busy with a lot of things. And I don't know. That's a real tough question, but I hope, if anything, if I'm talking wrestler wise, I hope I'm the guy that has your favorite match on every show you see. That's really an ultimate goal for me.
That's great, man. So before we let you go, man, we have one question that we ask everybody before they leave. So the pandemic's over. You're making towns. You can have 3 wrestlers in the car with you, alive or dead, any 3. What 3 wrestlers are making those towns with you?
Woo! Alive or dead?
Yep.
Okay. Dynamite Kid is definitely one.
Awesome.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Dynamite Kid. Cool. This is such a tough one. I'm gonna throw Low Key in there.
Ooh, 2 badasses right out of the jump.
I'm trying to give a curveball, but somebody like I genuinely want. Dynamite Kid. Fuck, that third one's a toughie. I'm sorry for this dead air, but I'm trying to give you a good answer.
Man, take your time.
Oh, here we go. Bam Bam Bigelow.
Oh,
okay. All right. I like that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. The Beast from the
Love
East.
it. So
That would be
Scotty,
it.
let everybody know where they can find you. If you have any shows coming up, get your plugs in, man.
You can find me on Twitter at AntiheroSOS, Instagram as well. I have a podcast that I'd love for you to check out. It's wrestling based, but we get off topic about a lot of things. It's more life based, but just life about a professional wrestler.
We do too.
It's called Wrestling with Myself. Please, it's available wherever you get your podcasts. I have a website called sunsetcrypt.com. It's all for your horror stuff. I have a YouTube channel, Sunset Crypt, as well, and we make these like ridiculously bad short horror films. I've been raped in a few of them. I get if it's not your cup of tea. Like, it's real bad stuff, but it's just, I have a bunch of creative friends and we all try to get going. And as for shows, I got nothing this weekend actually, and then next weekend is Canadian Thanksgiving, and then so I got nothing then, and then after that I have a show and I can't remember what date it is or what promotion it is. So at the risk of messing it up, I'm just gonna say I don't have anything that weekend yet.
Okay.
But that's about it, man. I really appreciate you guys giving me this time. I'm sorry I blabber on a lot.
No, we love
long-winded
it,
stories.
Great conversation. And for anyone listening or watching, go down into the comments below. We'll have all the stuff for Wrestling with Myself, all the links.
Yep.
Sunset Crypt. Go check out Scotty O'Shea. Dude, we had a blast. Thanks for doing this.
Definitely.
Hey,
man.
thank you guys. This was a real good time. I appreciate it so much.
Anytime, man.
Have a good one.
Take care, guys.